We see inside a cold stone room. Frost sprawls across the stones, and in the middle, a heap of corpses. A reinforced metal door swings open, and in comes two Thalbrook soldiers, dragging a dead body that they throw onto the pile, and then leave, closing the door. Rustling is heard underneath this pile of corpses. Bodies start to shift and fall over, breaking the top of this pile. A skeletal hand comes out and begins to pull itself out, and we see a Ganassi. An undead-looking Ganassi with pale skin. And as he pulls himself out, he takes a deep breath. And then he looks at his hand in horror. And he doesn't know what's happening around him. He looks at his clothes and they're just rags. And then this pounding headache bursts through his mind, and he is flooded with a flash of memories. He sees he is holding a vial of some kind of serum. There are soldiers in the room, and they're having some kind of argument. He's not able to make out what they're saying, but eventually it turns violent. And one of the soldiers takes their sword and pierces his chest with it. With these flash of memories gone, he looks down at his shirt, and there is the puncture wound of the sword which slayed him, which should have slain him. But now he looks at his hand, and he doesn't know what to make of any of it. He pulls himself out of this pile of corpses, quivering with his breath. And he hears the clicking of boots on the stone floor just outside the door. Without being able to do anything else, he quickly goes limp. He sees a Thalbrook soldier come through the door, dragging by the ankle a halfling. He tosses the halfling onto the pile. Acting out of fear or instinct, he doesn't quite know what is compelling him. But he spots a splintered bone, sharp. He grabs it, and when the Thalbrook soldier has turned his back, he grabs the man and stabs him in the neck, killing him. He quickly looks out the door. No one is there, so he closes it. Going back to the Thalbrook soldier, when he looks at him, another pounding migraine comes through, and He's looking in the mirror at himself. And he's wearing similar Thalbrook uniforms. And someone behind him calls out, "Eddy, we need you over here." He comes back. And he realizes his name is Eddy. He hears more clicking in the hall and quickly disrobes this Thalbrook soldier, taking his uniform. The boots move past the door. No one comes through. And he hides the body behind the pile of corpses. In the uniform, he finds a set of keys. So he leaves. And walking into the hall, something else hits him. He gets this surge again of an instinct, and he stands up straight. And he has this air of confidence to him, like a soldier at attention. And he begins to walk through the hall. And he doesn't quite know the mannerisms that he is doing, but it seems to be working as he walks inconspicuously among these Thalbrook soldiers. As he does, he has to turn to a door every now and then to avoid showing his face and giving rise to his suspicious complexion. He turns to one door, and soldiers pass behind him, not giving him any mind. And he fumbles through the keys. Looking in the door into this room, it's empty. So he decides to go inside to escape the hall and maybe form a plan of his escape. He goes inside and it appears empty, but there's something off. There's just something off about the whole room in general, but he has other things to think about. He quickly paces back and forth, thinking about how he's going to escape, where he is. He doesn't even know what this place is. Drool comes down from the ceiling, and as he looks up, there are multiple brown, hairy tentacles with barbs on the ends, and they flail about, starting to grab him and swipe at him. He manages to evade, and before leaving the room, he looks back. These tentacles are just free floating, it seems, in the air. And the moment he's gone, they disappear. He doesn't know what this place is, but there's monsters. Walking through the halls, he decides to look through more doors, maybe giving him an idea of what this place is. He goes to another door, and inside, he sees a pool of green ooze. As he looks further in, he sees that the ooze morphs into the torso of a man lying on the ground seamlessly. And the man looks at his body like he's concentrating. And he grunts. The man grunts. Come on. The more he struggles, you see the green ooze start to form one of his legs. And you see that he perks up, this man perks up, and he says, "Yes! Yes! Come on!" And he takes a breath from all of this struggle. And when he relaxes like that, the leg just falls back into ooze. And the man pounds on the ground. "No, no, no!" Eddy moves on to another door. He sees a man pacing the room. Larger stature than what he has seen so far, what he gathers is normal. And this man has scars all over his body, but the odd thing is the hand that is grafted into his shoulder and the arm coming out of his back, which the man moves with as much dexterity as his other limbs. He goes to another door. Inside, a woman in the corner, crying, cradling herself, and all over her body are these long hairs. And she's trying to, and she rubs them off, and they keep falling. A wreath of electricity comes over her body, and then she grabs the walls, the stone walls, and she says, "No, no." And she disappears and then teleports to a different part in the room. She begins crying, "No, no." Electricity wreaths over her again, and she's teleported into the air and then falls down. Eddy starts to get a picture of what this place is. There's monsters and people and the in-between. And this seems like this is a place where they experiment on people. And the room which he came from was where they put the experiments that go wrong. Not desiring to stay around any longer or to look in any more rooms, he quickly finds a sign somewhere of direction. And after turning a few corners, he finds a door different than the others, of finer quality. And there a plaque on the door which says, "Officer." Looking around, there's no one there. He tries to open the door, but it's locked. So he takes a few steps back, and with a charge, he kicks the door open. The loud sound echoes through the halls. He quickly tries to find anything that can be of use, and in a display case, he sees an officer's uniform, an officer's armor. He takes a bag, and he quickly puts anything inside that can be of use. A blanket. He goes through the desk. There's documents sprawled across it. He takes a few stationary items from the desk. There's some bottles inside the drawers he collects. And when no one is coming, he looks at the officer's armor and decides to put that on and leave the soldier's armor. Now in the disguise of an officer, and with a bag of some supplies, he leaves, realizing that he won't have much time before they find him, before the officer gets back to the office to find that it has been broken into. He needs to find an escape. Going down the halls, he finds a sewer grate, big enough for him to fit in. He removes it and slides down into the sewer before landing in a pool of black water. In this pool of black water, he hears the sound of a rushing waterfall. He swims to the opening and he looks out into a vast, untamed wilderness. He looks down and the waterfall is a waterfall filled with ice and rocks. Looking up, he sees a mountain, a cold, icy mountain with a stone fortress on top. Between the wilderness and the fortress, he chooses the wilderness. So, preparing himself as best he can, he takes a jump into the waterfall. He injures himself on the way down. Being tossed and tumbled, he breaks one of his legs. When he reaches the bottom, he quickly limps to dry land. He finds a branch and uses that as a crutch to walk some distance away. But the pain is too much, and he has to find a nearby tree for refuge. He climbs into a tree, and using the fibrous bark, he makes a splint for his leg. He takes a rest of 1 hour before sirens begin to sound and lights are emitted from this tall, mountainous fortress. The sounds of men and dogs are in the distance. He has no time to stay. So he grabs his crutch and he quickly goes deeper into the untamed wilderness. Going deeper, he goes as far as he can go before his leg is screaming in pain. The dogs and the officers are closer now. Before he thinks all is lost, he spots a bog. Looking back and then looking forward, he makes the decision to enter the bog very quietly so as to not disturb anything inside. He finds a hollowed out reed that he uses as a breathing straw, and he submerges himself completely underwater. The soldiers and the dogs reach the bog. The dogs stop for a moment. And he hears the muffled voices of the officers, and they begin to pass over the bog, move somewhere else. He waits in that bog underwater. He doesn't know how long, but several hours. He comes back out and his skin is wrinkled. He still hears the distant sounds of the dogs, but they're a safe enough distance away now. So he goes in the complete opposite direction of where they are, traveling very slowly, but eventually he doesn't hear them anymore. He takes out the wool blanket from his pack, wraps himself in it, and in a nearby thicket of bushes, he falls down, covering himself. And he rests. In the morning, going through his pack, he finds a potion, and he recognizes it as a healing potion. He takes it, and his broken leg isn't healed, but it definitely makes the surrounding wounds better. He puts it back for later, and then continues his journey. He travels for weeks, aimlessly, in this wild, surviving off of the berries and other fungus in the area. The terrain eventually turns from a winter cold into a warm, inviting summer. And when it does, he finds a trail of hogs. And he follows it, knowing that wildlife will know where to find resources. Following the trail, he hears the hogs that he's been following for weeks. And along with the hogs, he hears the sounds of a village, of people, the smell of smoke in the air, chopping wood, the tink of a blacksmith. And the first person he sees is at the very edge of the village. A half-orc girl picking flowers. Excited to see other people, he quickly approaches, thinking, I have finally found rest. He approaches, he says, I need help. The girl looks up at him and squints, furrows her brows. She quickly bends down, grabs a longbow that was in the grass, and nocks an arrow. And that is how Eddy arrives in Banderswaal.